Hi, I'm with Drake Riggs, and we're going to do a breakdown of next week's main card featuring Colby, Covington versus Tyrone, Woodley, and then we're just going to do an MMA general discussion, also talking about Drake's new project, which is very interesting. I would love to hear what it's about and what he thinks of it. First fight of next week's card, we have Khamzat Chimaev versus Gerald Meerschaert. Obviously, this is kind of like a setup fight for Damian Maia if everything goes to plan with the UFC. They're pushing him to the moon, like to the stars, and I just think that I've talked about this in my last podcast that I really think they need to nurture the talent a bit more. And look what we're doing with Yusuf Salal. Like, he's in his fourth fight and yet he's fighting another prospect on October. So I'm like, I think they need to be a bit careful with how they produce their talent, and I think like they just need to slow it down a bit. What's your opinions on that?
Yeah, it's the whole Hamzat thing. It's been a real phenomenon, right? I mean, this guy comes out of nowhere and is just an instant star because of, well, first of all, how he won, and then the fact that he fought, 10 days later, something we never see, and then he does the exact same thing in the second fight. Granted, the thing is, like, his opponents weren't, they weren't top guys or anything. These were guys that he, should have beaten stylistically and all that. And we saw how it played out. So, as for he's pretty much trying to do the exact same thing again, except against, much better guys. It'll be interesting to see, because obviously those performances showed that he is very talented, but it's like, can you take as much away as people have been from that because of who he was going against? Like Gerald Meerschaert, first of all, this guy is a total kill or be killed kind of fighter. Like, I think he's only got a decision like maybe once in wins and losses, and he's had like over 30 fights. So that guy is being slept on for sure in the first fight. And, he could very well knock him off. And then do they still do the Damian Maia fight after? It seems kind of weird because obviously he's the big step up between all three of these first three opponents that Khamzat is expected to have. It's a very crazy thing. They obviously believe in him and he believes in himself, rightfully so. Why wouldn't he? But yeah, it's a very unique situation. And you look at, we've seen these fighters like obviously Cowboy, Angela Hill, who are like trying to stay active as much as they possibly can, no matter who they're fighting. But he's kind of trying to do that against, climbing the ladder at the same time, which is kind of more unique than the other two. So yeah, man, it's a very strange thing. I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. Like, if he can pull that off, then we'll be like, okay, I guess we better believe in this guy 100% now. Because if he can do that to Damian Maia, assuming he gets past Meerschaert, which that's not an easy thing, first of all, that's pretty legit,
And I think, no disrespect to Gerald, but he got stopped really badly in his last fight in the first round against Ian Heinisch. So whether he's fully recovered from that, and it wasn't even, was that in May or June?
Yeah, it was right before the summertime, I think. Yeah.
So he's still not had that much time to recover. So it's like, I think he'll get past Gerald. And I think the thing with Damian Maia, it could be a Gilbert Burns situation where people think that Khamzat is just a wrestler. And I think in his last fight for Brave, he knocked out Kali Ikram Alaskov or something like that. He was 8-0 at the time. And I think he KO'd him with punches, and he was just standing KO. So I don't think people realize that he can strike as well. So as good as Maia is on the ground, he might just stay standing and Chimaev could stop him. Do you think that could be a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the interesting thing about, going against Maia is we've seen him against, elite wrestlers before. Like, obviously that 3-fight losing streak he had was against, Woodley, Usman, and Covington, like literally, three of the best guys in the division there. And none of those guys really tried to take him down because obviously that's not a smart idea to do. So they were kind of, boring fights where Maia, the crazy stat where he attempted like 25 takedowns between all three fights and didn't get a single one. Like, it's usually Maia trying to wrestle the wrestlers, and submit him because he doesn't, he's not into the striking. And then those guys end up, defending and then striking against him. So, well, I guess Ben Askren was the only one who really tried to wrestle with him, and that didn't pay off. So that's what I'm getting at. It'll be interesting to see if Khamzat is, doesn't care about the jiu-jitsu of Damian and, decides to play there. But obviously the safer choice is to be defensive with his grappling rather than offensive and outstrike Maia, which he should be able to do.
Yeah. So who are you going with Kimiev versus Meerschaert? Are you going with Chimaev?
Yeah, I just feel like you made a good point about that knockout that Meerschaert is coming off of, and even though I think Gerald is pretty underrated, and I've liked watching him in the UFC so far. In his I think his striking, his grappling has kind of been his bread and butter, submissions, tossing him up. I think that's his best path to victory in this one. But I was going to say his striking has gotten better over time. Like you look at the Eric Anders fight, I thought he looked really good in that one and got kind of robbed in that fight. um but yeah, Hamzat, it's just like he took no damage in those two fights, which is insane, so when you look at it that way and who's got more miles on him, I'm gonna go stick with the hype for this one, the hype train, and then we'll talk about my one after that. But yeah, I think Hamza can get it done, but definitely don't sleep on Gerald. He can whip out a submission from anywhere.
Exactly, and also just one more thing before we get on to the next fight, which is an excellent fight. I don't like the fact that fans go, I can't wait for Chimaev to lose and do all this hype. And I'm thinking, do you not want the sport to have new stars? Like we did it with Sean O'Malley. I know that they can be annoying, like the fans, but I'm just thinking, UFC are struggling with new stars at the moment, aren't they? So I'm like, why can't you just let these guys? I know undefeated. You don't have to be undefeated. You can be a star with having losses, but I just feel like you should want these guys to do well because I feel like it pushes the sport and it elevates the sport. What do you think about like fans saying this stuff? I know it's a bit of tongue in cheek, but what do you think about it?
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I don't know. There's just so many haters, in terms of the fans in MMA. So it's like I never put too much stock into that. Like, yeah, why would you want somebody to? I mean, especially with Hamzat's case, it's not like he's being a dick or anything, right? He's just like doing his thing, and they're letting him do it. So I don't know. I don't think you should feel that way about him. Like not against O'Malley or anything, but there's much more. It's more understandable to be that way against him because he's much more of a brash personality who's out there and does his own thing. So it's silly. It's just all a bunch of nonsense. But hey, they're talking about him, so that's good. That's something.
Mm-hmm. And also, I don't think I think he's embracing it as well because obviously he's saying he wants to fight this guy, and this guy. So I hope he does well. I think he could be a future star of the UFC, and obviously he's being compared to Habib, obviously for obvious reason. They're from similar regions. I know Shimiev's from Sweden, but he's from Chechnya originally, which is not far from Dagestan. So we're both going with Chimaev. What are you going by, TKO or submission or decision?
Yeah, I'll say TKO, ground and pound. Round two. I'll do round two.
Yeah, I think he'll be able to have his own way with him on the ground, and I think he will ground and pound him, or he could even submit him in late round 3. Because I don't think he'll get out there in round 1. I think Meerschaert is much of a veteran. Next fight, we've got Donald's Cowboy Cerrone, who we mentioned previously, wanting to stay active against Nico Price, who's just the king of unexpected KOs.
Yeah, no kidding.
He had a great fight with Luque, I think, in May, and it was a close fight. Luque is obviously a top 10 guy or top 15 guy. It's a dangerous fight for Cerrone to take. If he's thinking that it's a fight for him to get into the win column, it's not going to be that, I don't think. I think Price will be very awkward for him, but Cerrone is very much of a veteran. He's had nearly 50 fights. Oh, no, might have had over 50 fights now. So, how do you see it going?
Well, first of all, I didn't realize that one was coming up so soon. I'm all over the place, but that's exciting. But yeah, this fight is very interesting. And the thing about Nico Price for me is like he is. Sorry, apologies. The thing about Nico Price is that his recklessness is obviously the big thing we love about him, right? And it creates exciting fights every single time, but it can also be to his detriment, right? We've seen it where I'm trying to think of which one it was, but we've seen the times where he's either getting hurt and then his opponent goes after him and he pulls through with it, or vice versa, where he's hurting them and he just goes for it and he gets knocked out himself. So I think that his kind of style can be really good for Cerrone. Of course, I mean, the thing with Cerrone in the past has kind of been you pressure him, you can break him down if you were, pretty calculated about it. And of course, Nico Price can do that. But I don't know. I feel like people are counting out Cowboy a little bit more than maybe they should these days. Like the Anthony Pettis fight, he lost that one, but it was pretty close. I think I might have edged it to Cerrone. He didn't get dominated or anything. Like it wasn't the McGregor fight or any of those performances, right? Like Cerrone, he hung in there, right? And I mean, Pettis, they're both kind of in that same region right now. Nico Price, a younger guy, a bigger guy, a more dangerous guy than Pettis, though, he can knock you out from anywhere, like you were saying, hammer fists on the ground, up kicks, insane highlight reel that this guy has. If you can put Cerrone on that too, then damn, that's a big, feather in the cap. But of course, the experience and veteranship is all in favor of Cerrone. So it'll be really interesting to see how he approaches the fight. I think because Nico, his game plan is pretty much the same every time out. Go out and just smash you if you can in whatever way. So it's gonna be interesting. But I think Cerrone definitely has a path to victory. He shouldn't be counted out. He'll probably be underdog, but I think it's a good matchup for him.
I think also this is not the case of, when you see a younger guy fighting a veteran, you're thinking, oh, the veteran's taking a lot of damage. Nico Price has taken a lot of damage. Like he's got KO round 1 losses to Abdul Razak Al Hassan, which I think was a similar fight to what you're talking about. Like he's gone there, and then he had the role reversed on him. They both took in damage, so I feel like they both have a very good chance of winning round 1. I don't feel like it's the classic instance of like people with Mennefield versus OSP last week when they're talking about, oh, it's the new guy versus a guy whose chin might be gone. And I picked OSP to win because I didn't trust Mennefield cardio enough in that fight and stuff. But I don't want to go against Cerrone, but he's on a bad losing streak. I know you can say about the Pettis fight, whether he won or not. I thought Pettis won, but I'm probably going to get a lot of stick for that. But also, I've got to get a lot of stick for saying Volkanovski won as well. But I think it's just the way people see fights, isn't it? So, but I hope that Cerrone can turn it around. Because I think having guys like that to put to the game, obviously, his name is a big draw. Not in terms of casual fans, but like hardcore, everyone knows him, people tune in to watch him fight. I think John will win by decision. I think it'll be a close fight. I think, even though I said they'll get it in round 1, I'm not sure whether they will. They can do, but I think it will be a close decision. What's your final prediction on it?
The more I've been thinking about it, as we're talking about it right here, it's people always, no one ever really accounts for Cerrone's, like his ground game going into matchups and like breaking them down and everything. But we forget that he's very talented on the ground and underrated. You remember his first run at welterweight, right? Where he knocked out Rick Story, I can't remember. There was Oliveira, Cowboy Oliveira, those Matt Brown was in there, those kind of guys. But he was taking down like Rick Story, who is known for his wrestling, which is very impressive in his own right. And in this fight, I could see him kind of throwing that out there because if Nico gets so aggressive and in his face, maybe he tags him up a little bit. That Cowboy goes for a takedown and gets it because Nico's been, he's got all right takedown defense, but nothing crazy. If he gets him down, then it's submissionville, right? Cowboy can definitely work his way into maybe a triangle, armbar, rear naked choke, of course, those submissions that we usually see from him when he does take it there. And man, at welterweight, because the Pettis fight, was that what at welterweight or lightweight? I don't remember.
I think it's close. I think.
Yeah. Well, either way, he's more comfortable at welterweight. So it's tough. It's a tough one, but I'm gonna think that he'll find the takedown at some point, and he'll work his way from there. I'll say round 2 again. Round 2 submission though for Cowboy. I believe in him. He's gonna break the losing streak.
It's a great fight, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a very exciting fight for Nico Price. I feel like if he wins, he gets elevated, obviously, because if you fight Conor McGregor in the main event, your name gets elevated. So you're thinking, I know Cowboy lost, but people will still tune in to watch him. Because look what happened to the Diaz brothers. I know a lot of people outside the casual fan, I don't like saying that word, but the hardcore fans obviously knew him more. And now after that, the history him and Conor have, everyone's like, Diaz this and Diaz that. Like, everyone's so excited to see him fight. So it'd be huge for Nico Price if he gets to win. And if Cerrone wins, he can get himself... He's not ranked anymore, is he?
No.
No. So obviously, a win could even put him back into the rankings, knowing how the rankings work these days. So I'm hoping that I like both guys, so I don't mind who wins it.
Yeah.
Next fight, I might be a little bit biased towards, but this is an excellent fight. I like both of these two guys. It's Darren Stewart versus Kevin Holland. Obviously, Darren Stewart's from the UK, and he's one of these guys who I've compared to Paul Craig in terms of he's someone who wins fights he shouldn't supposed to win, or he makes fights look really tough. He's not meant to make. Because you look at his fight against Edmund Shabazi, and he could have won that fight. I think he gassed himself out, and I feel like if he just was a little more busier in that third round, he could have won that fight. And then he loses to Bartosz Fabinski, which was a bit of a bad loss for him against a welterweight. And he's fighting a very good guy in Kevin Holland, who's obviously lost to Brendan Allen, but Brendan Allen's been fantastic recently. He's not lost in the UFC. Kevin Holland's obviously coming off 2 star-making performances against Joaquin Buckley, and when he destroyed Anthony Hernandez in like 30 seconds, I think it was. So I think Holland will win. I think Holland is someone that's going to be in the top 15 very soon, and I feel like he's a guy that could be a future UFC star because I think he's got everything the UFC wants. He's marketable, he talks a good game, he does all these good things, and I feel like if middleweight doesn't work out for him, he can go down to welterweight. He's talked about wanting to go down to welterweight anyway, so I feel like he's not really in a bad position if he loses. I feel like Darren Stewart's more in worse position. What do you think of this fight?
Yeah, I mean, very well put there with all of that. Kevin Holland, he's got a unique frame for, the weight class and everything, and powerful, but he doesn't look very muscular, kind of. His looks are deceiving, let's put it that way. And Darren Stewart, obviously, packs a great punch and everything, but yeah, a little bit more middle of the pack, hasn't quite gotten any solid momentum going yet in his UFC career, but has put on, some fun performances, of course. That last one against Maki Pitolo was fun. I mean, any Maki Pitolo fight's pretty fun, so that just goes to show there. And then Kevin Holland fights obviously are very fun too. I mean, if you like that kind of showmanship, which can be a thing that, obviously turns people off or can cost fights because the fighters playing around too much, which we have seen from Holland in the past, but in like these last 2 fights, he's kind of, I think he's fixed that a bit, or gotten more active and played around less in terms of his offense. And just because you look at like the Meerschaert fight and the Dikariku fight, his first couple UFC fights, and of course there was the Thiago Santos fight, which that was a weird fight. When you look back at that fight, that was really weird.
Well.
Yeah. Which I think he was late replacement on that one, because that would only make sense. Yeah, what a tough debut to have, Thiago Santos. So yeah, this should be a fun one, I think. But yeah, obviously Kevin Holland has all the momentum, all the confidence in the world. Darren Stewart, I could see him, pulling it off. I mean, and maybe, because Kevin Holland's got a pretty good chin on him. Because I was going to say if Darren Stewart, can land that big bomb, but I don't know. Kevin Holland is shown to be really durable, and like I mentioned, he survived against Thiago Santos, so who can he should be able to survive against most guys, unless they can wrap him up in a submission. But I don't think Darren Stewart's going to be doing that. So yeah, I think it's Kevin Holland's fight to lose. Let's put it that way. So I will say. I'm going to go round 2 again. I'm going to go round 2 TKO for Kevin Holland. Keep the middle round.
Stewart did surprise me with a guillotine in his last fight against Maki Pitolo. So I think
that is true.
This is in his arsenal. Like I'm not just able to knock out people. I can get submissions if I want to as well. So, and the thing on quickly about Holland versus Santos. Didn't Dana White say to him after the Dana White Contender Series something like, be careful what you wish for, something to him? Because I think it could have been like in spite, not spite, but thinking, okay, you would talk this game, would give you one against one of the most dangerous guy and see how you do. And he obviously passed the test. Because we see Umar Nurmagomedov, he was meant to fight Nathaniel Wood as well. So you're thinking, you got these guys who they obviously rate so much, like, because he was experienced at the time, wasn't he? What was his record again in Dana White Contender Series?
Kevin Holland was 13-3 after he won, so he was 12-3 going in.
So that's kind of more like a more experienced record than you normally get, isn't it? So I felt they felt like, oh, he's obviously ready. He's obviously quite a cocky fighter, which they kind of like, and he's a guy who wants to keep active. So I think he's Dana White's kind of like main guy they want in terms of they're always keen on guys who are very active, like Shimaev as well. He's a guy who wants to fight. They like these guys, and they'll obviously give them rewards. Obviously, you see with Shimaev, who could break into the top 10 after just 4 fights. So I think Holland's a very good fighter, and I think he will win. I don't think. Do you reckon Stewart would get cut? Because I know his record at the start. He was like 1-4, wasn't he? Now he's gone back. I think he's now 5-4. So I feel like he's someone who's always excited, and he's a guy who remains active. So I think he's a guy they should keep around. Because I think he's a good gatekeeper around the top 30 to 25 range.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, surprisingly, he's been around since I guess 4 years. November 2016 was his debut. But yeah, I agree. I mean, he's coming off a win. So if he loses this, he would be 3-2 in his last 5. I mean, that's not terrible. So I mean, just that Fabinski loss breaks up what could have been a 4-fight, winning streak. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, you definitely keep Darren Stewart if he loses. So,
and another great fight. So your final prediction is Holland round 2.
Yes.
I think Holland will win by KO as well. I think he'll stop him late round 1. I think he could get him out there in the first one, which I don't really want to happen because obviously I want to see the UK guys do well.
Yeah. It's got to be real.
Yeah. Next we have a guy who we kind of can claim because he's trained in the UK for a bit, but obviously represents Brazil. Johnny Walker versus Ryan Spann, which is a fantastic fight. I think obviously people are saying Johnny Walker was going to beat John Jones, and then you know what fans are like, he loses one fight and everyone goes, oh, he's rubbish, he's this and that. I think fans can be so weird with that. You lose one fight and everyone's like, oh, I can't believe he was going to beat John Jones. Like, I think he's obviously got talent there, but I think if you look at his previous, I don't think he fought the best of guys outside of the UFC, obviously in the regional scene. I don't think he fought the best of guys and he looked good. And I think he even got KO'd against a guy he shouldn't have done. So I think there was a bit of alarming signs going into the UFC. Obviously, he looked dead flashy. He had this fantastic Brazilian style. I'm not sure if it's capoeira, if it's that kind of style. Obviously, it's not as crazy as Mikel Ferreira, what we saw last week. But Ryan Spann's obviously another guy who came from the Contender Series. I think did he came twice? Or did he go to Contender Series, didn't get in, and then got called up?
He lost his first try. That was in 2017 on, it says this Contender Series 3 here, but yeah, Carl Roberson beat him. That was that crazy 20-second knockout, yeah. But second time did the trick for him. Against
Emiliano Sordi, who's a good fighter in PFL, so. And then obviously he's coming up win over Sam Alvey, which wasn't the best of fights, but it's hard to look good against Sam Alvey. He's just this awkward guy. He's on a really good winning streak at the moment, isn't he? So I think he will win. I think wanted them to do more Jimmy Crute versus Ryan Spann. I think that would have been a better fight in terms of Johnny Walker could have fought a guy like Kutaliba or someone outside the rankings. I thought that would have been better for him. Because if he loses this one, he's on a 3-fight losing streak. He's kind of a tough guy to keep around. I feel like they've blown their boat too much. I don't think that's even a saying, but
it is now.
In terms of like they were giving him a huge push. He's lost 2 in a row now. I'm thinking you could have given him someone to build him back up. They haven't done. Spann's not someone to build him back up. Obviously, if he wins, he will, but he's not someone who's going to lay over. I think he's going to win by KO round 2. What do you think is going to happen?
Interesting. Yeah, man, the whole Johnny Walker phenomenon, what a crazy thing it's been. I remember I was there when he lost to Corey Anderson, that was a wild thing to see, because everybody was like, all right, this could be where we see the next contender come for John Jones. and maybe it should have, but in the other direction. Yeah, Ryan Spann though he's matched up with the thing about this fight will be, I think. So Ryan Spann obviously is very talented in his own right. A very powerful puncher, big guy for light heavyweight. I think he could knock Johnny Walker out, but Johnny Walker is probably proven to be, the better striker and obviously more flashy and more dangerous, more weapons in his toolbox around the feet, right? Um, so it's going to come down to, I think, if he can defend a takedown, right? I mean, because we saw in that last fight against Nikita Krylov, which the fight that we totally did not expect to go to decision, but it did because Krylov, fought smart and took him down at will. So Ryan Spann is definitely big enough and talented enough with his grappling and wrestling to do that to Johnny Walker. Just a matter of Johnny can defend it, and I don't think he went to the right place, training camp wise, to try and improve that. Like if he would have went somewhere like AKA or ATT or obviously those are the big top choices you would choose or anything, but places that are known for having really good grapplers in wrestling. Not quite what he did this time around. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, he could obviously land something before Spann shoots in, which every fight starts standing, but I think that Spann will be able to survive anything early enough, and if he decides to employ that game plan of trying to take Johnny down, which would be the smart thing. I will believe he's smart enough, so I will take Spann by. I'm gonna say decision. I think Johnny will survive, but Spann will out wrestle him. So unanimous for Spann.
And it's just a big blow if Walker loses. He's obviously got a bunch of charisma, a bunch of character, and I just wish he was just a bit smarter in the way he fought in terms of just what annoys me about fighters, like if there's something that there's clearly holes in the game and they just don't do anything to work on it, and I feel like you're just giving them blueprint now for anyone, even outside the UFC, just to beat you. And it also annoys me also when I see fighters who still win but don't use their skill set, or because I feel like you're great at this but you're too much engaged in doing what your opponent is doing, which also kind of like for example, Usman and Covington, it was a great fight, but it was only a great fight because they were scared to go down to the ground with each other. Like they didn't want to use what their best skills was. So it was like, that's just the kind of things that kind of irritate me a bit. But I think Spann will win. I think he's much more on the A side in terms of the win streaks he's on. And he's obviously the guy who is a bit different in terms of he's a guy that can wrestle in the bigger divisions. You don't really see that much, like a lot. So I think he'll win. I think if KO him in the second round, we'll have to see. I'm not sure if this next fight is a co-main event or not. Topology just has that on the main card, but I'm assuming it's a co-main. Mackenzie Dern versus Ronda Marcots. I want to speed this up a bit because I want to get into other stuff like just news in general and stuff. How do you see that fight going?
This one's a really interesting one because obviously Mackenzie Dern is one of the best, jiu-jitsu practitioners just in the sport, really, if we're being totally honest. So obviously you don't want to go to the ground with her. Randa Marcos, total veteran at this point, has great wrestling, great submission game in her own right, but obviously not on the same level. And I think that she's going to be smart enough to not try and take it there. And I mean, we've seen Mackenzie Dern doesn't have the greatest stand-up. Like, this is no secret. She's wild and she hits hard. She does have power in her punches. We've seen her drills before many times. It's just the technique is not very good. So I think Randa will have an edge in technique, of course, and then the power will kind of be Dern's favor. But I think that Randa could outstrike her if it stays there. But eventually, Mackenzie is going to try to get things to the ground. And the problem I've always had with Mackenzie Dern, which there's another one, is her striking has obviously never been great, but the thing that's bothered me is her setups to get things to the ground aren't very good at all, right? Like, she doesn't ever go for it, like single leg, double legs. No, she doesn't really go for any traditional takedowns. She just kind of tries to drag you to the ground if you can, which, as we saw against Hannah Cifers in her last fight, which, of course, she ended up getting submission still, but Hannah was doing very well right up until she got caught. Like, she was defending, and of course, Hannah is very surprisingly strong for strawweight for how small she is, and, especially against Dern, who has fought at flyweight before, but, she was able to, I mean, Dern just kind of tries to, it's really weird, how she tries to bring people to the ground, which isn't very, technical or anything about it. And somebody who is experienced enough and strong enough in grappling defense should be able to take care of that. And Randa can do that as well. So it's just a matter of, not slipping up for like a second and going to the ground, because then you can see, blink of an eye, it'll be over. Like Hannah Cifers, she stayed down for just a second too long. If she would have immediately tried to just get away from Dern, then the fight would have went on a little bit longer. Maybe she would have lost still, but it would have lasted a bit more. So it's an interesting one. Obviously I think Dern is going to be the favorite, and, probably rightfully so at this point, as much as I hate to say it against Randa. But, Randa's been back and forth every single fight, with her career, unfortunately, where it's win-loss, win-loss. So she's due for a win in this one, which would be really good for her. I don't know. I'm gonna. This is a tough one for me to pick, because I will say Dern will catch her at some point. 3 rounds is too much time. I'll say third round though. Third round submission for Dern, but Randa can definitely, if she keeps it on the feet, like I was saying, defends those drags, then she can definitely win it.
This fight could be, and we've seen it previously in other fights as well, Mackenzie Dern. It could be a lot like Kron Gracie versus Cub Swanson, in terms of a guy constantly going for a takedown, not really setting anything up, just constantly going for the drags.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem with these jiu-jitsu guys and women. They're very good, obviously. Like, I was saying this last week with the Thiago Moises, which obviously didn't happen, but we saw how quickly he got the submission against Michael Johnson, how quickly he did it. But prior to that, didn't look too great, and I feel like was the knee bar from Hannah Cifers kind of like the Michael Johnson Moises one? Was Cifers on the feet still while she got hooked up on the knee bar?
Yep.
I didn't want to get that wrong, because I kind of had that image. I'm thinking, was that like Michael Johnson? And it said
yeah,
no.
very similar. Yeah.
So they can get it done in seconds as soon as even Mackenzie Dern's kind of, like how they sometimes just throw themselves onto the back when they're in the clinch, like it can end within 2 seconds, even if Mackenzie Dern's decides to throw herself on the back and then look for a triangle, whatever. So I think it's very hard not to root for her and go against her, because Marcos has also been very inconsistent, obviously, as well. They have 2 similar losses in Amanda Hebas, which is obviously no shame, and actually probably one of the best strawweights in the world. I think she can easily break into the top 5, depending on. I think they're trying to get her against Esparza. I think they're trying to do for December. So it's not a bad loss there, obviously. So I think Dern will get a submission in round 2. And now on to the main event. Hopefully everything stands, nothing pulls out. After these last couple of weeks, it's been crazy. Even the events for this week's fights have been pulled out like last minute now, with Matt Favola and I think someone else, and I can't remember who it is now. Matt Schnell. Matt Schnell's been pulled out of the fight. It's not COVID related. I don't think any of them are. I think Matt Schnell was weight cutting, and I'm not too sure what was wrong with. Or who did I mention before?
Favola.
Favola. I'm not too sure what it was with him. But this main event is amazing. As I see a fight that everybody wanted to see in Colby Covington versus Tyrone Woodley. I put on Twitter a couple of days ago saying, is it just me or the lack of promotion for this fight? Like, I get it was made on quite short notice, but if I'm then, knowing the history that these two have, I would non-stop tweeting it. Same with Dana White. Like, I don't understand why they're not pushing this so hard, because Covington's obviously huge, Woodley's huge. I think they're just missing the boat, missing whatever they need to do on this one.
I mean, Yeah, I mean they dropped the ball with it when it should have happened, while Woodley was still champion, right? So I mean it's definitely very overdue, and maybe because they're just like, whatever, it's just happening now. So like, well, come on, man, you should be a little bit excited for it because it's still a big rivalry fight. Obviously they don't like each other, and Colby's kind of gone a little bit quiet lately, which makes it a little interesting too, to see if because surely we'll see him next week and doing some stuff. So it'll should probably be same old Colby antics, which maybe they're just wait until we get right up to the finish line. We'll see.
What do you think of like Colby's like antics and the way he resonates with the fans in terms of he's probably one of the most split guy I think I've seen, because I'm fairly new to the sport, so I've not really seen a character that kind of divides someone so much. I get that his character is really annoying, and I get it's so controversial, but he's admitted himself that it's fake. He admitted that he had to create this persona before he got cut. So I feel like even though the things what he's saying, obviously I don't want to bring it into political because obviously I'm not interested in that stuff. I don't think politics should be in sport.
Yeah.
But I just feel like people should take what he says with pinch of salt. So unless he says something really bad, I know the line, which I think he has done in the past, but the most of the things he says is just stupid. Like, it's just something just to sell a fight. And I feel like people need to realise this is not really him, because we've seen with videos of him being kind of normal and genuine. So it's kind of hard to tell what is the real Colby and what isn't. What do you think of his antics? And obviously, how do you see this fight going?
So the funny thing about the Colby Covington rise to fame for me has been like, okay, so at first, it kind of annoyed the shit out of me too, right? I was like, all right, what are you doing, dude? You're really stupid saying all these things and everything. But then, after a while, time goes on, and like, so early on, it was kind of like, because he went from, normal guy, and then he just kind of started doing this, right? And people weren't paying too much attention to him until he started doing it. So the people thought that like, oh, this is actually him. And then I remember seeing him do something a part of, like TNA wrestling, right? Professional wrestling stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, well, he's faking it. Like, this is obviously a character. He's doing that there, and then it's the same thing here. So then after like seeing that, I was like, okay, this is kind of hilarious. I started to find him funny because I knew what he was doing. Like, sure, he's saying stupid stuff, but I can find the entertainment value in that. I don't like what he's saying or anything, but I think it's funny that he's so committed to this character. Like just like if you like, there's no reason to be upset about it when, yeah, sure, he says some offensive stuff and all that, but you got to understand that what he's doing. Like, if he's sure, I mean, maybe he does believe some of those things, but the way he's presenting it is the whole thing about it. Like, the presentation is like he's doing that for a reason. Like, if he was genuine about it, and I don't know, I might catch heat for that, but it's just funny to me. Like, this, like, don't be upset about it because he's just doing, understand it, realize what, what it's all about, I guess. And it's a funny thing. People get upset at a lot of stuff. So he's succeeding in his goal. But as for the fight, yeah, I think that he's gonna dominate Woodley. Honestly, I think that people, because of the character that he has created, they just discredit him so much, and they did that really his entire run up to the title fight. They were like, "Oh, Robbie's gonna knock him out. Dos Anjos is gonna." It was always that he was gonna get destroyed by other guy. He's like, okay, your hate is kind of blinding you here, and how good that this guy is. Like, the pace that he puts on is unlike almost anybody. The volume and pressure that he combines together to, attack his opponents is insane. And against Woodley, I think that's an absolute nightmare against Woodley, who people made the argument after this Gilbert Burns fight that he's kind of getting washed up now, or at the end of his career. Which, yeah, sure, probably at the end of his career for sure. But I argue that he's fought that same way pretty much his whole career. If you look back at, only certain opponents have been able to bring this out of him, or if he gets pressured, if somebody's dictating the pace, he will let them dictate the pace, and he's going to be back against the cage for pretty much the whole time, just waiting, to land that bomb. If you look back at all of his fights, That's pretty much really how it's been, aside from a couple where the opponents are backing away a little bit. Like Robbie wasn't too aggressive on him. Robbie got knocked out. There's a handful of them, and the wrestlers too that he has fought. Like for example, Jake Shields. Obviously, that was not a great fight, but a close one. And Jake, it was pretty much a cage war. Clinch control against the fence. But then Rory McDonald, had his way, was able to out wrestle him there. Gilbert Burns, obviously, Usman, like all these guys with kind of similar styles and approaches to Woodley, who Woodley fighting the same way against all of them, didn't do so well. Covington, kind of the same situation. I think he's gonna go in there, just beat up Woodley, pour it on him for the whole 5 rounds. I mean, I don't think he'll finish Woodley, but I think it's going to be the same old story we've seen in Woodley's losses. These, especially the last two, Burns and Usman. I don't think it'll be too much different. The only thing is, like, if Covington gets caught coming in, which is possible, but I don't know, man. Woodley just he frustrates me to watch him fight that way, but that's how it's been, really. If you look at his, like, especially his whole UFC career, really, maybe before that, not so much. Like, if you look back at the Nate Marquardt fight, that was a really fun one, just overall. But his UFC career, he's fought pretty much this whole way we've seen recently. It's just been a case, or a matter of, matchups and opponents. And these certain guys who have been beating him all have similar skill sets. And Covington's going to do the same. It's going to be a 50-40 unanimous decision. He's going to get 10-8s in all 5 rounds. No, he's not going to. Maybe not that, but I guarantee he will get some 10-8s. I'm going to say that. Unanimous decision for Colby, though.
I think he'll win as well. I'm not, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of him. And if he does become world champion again and he beats Usman, obviously I think he'll be unbearable for a week or so. No, for the whole year, probably. But I think he'll be someone you can't take seriously, because didn't he throw a boomerang at Fabricio Verdum, or was that the other way around? Do you know when they were in Brazil, and when it was with Colby Covington, obviously saying that they're animals, and him and Verdum, I think, had an argument backstage, and I think one of them threw a boomerang at each other, and I'm thinking, these are fighters.
Yeah, they were outside. I don't know what they were doing, but Verdum threw the boomerang at him. That's like a cartoon.
I think Covington will win. But also, what annoys me was saying about the Burns, people were saying when Burns, because obviously people wanted Masvidal to get the shot for the title. This is when Burns had the title shot. People were saying, but he beat washed up Woodley. But this was a guy who just lost to Usman. Before that, had the longest reign in the welterweight division. So he was coming off 1 loss. You can't say he was washed because he came off 1 loss to a guy who's an incredible wrestler and an incredible fighter, and he's proven that he is. And I just feel like they were trying to downgrade because it was Burns. Like they were saying, and same with Damian Maia. Damian Maia was coming off a fantastic win streak. He beat guys like Anthony Martin. Like, it's not like Maia was doing bad. He's not beating guys who are coming off a 3-fight loss streak. They're coming guys who are either still doing well but declining kind of, or someone that's just coming off the longest reign as a world champion. So I feel like Woodley isn't that declined, or he's not washed up. I think he's declining. I think he's obviously got someone that there's a clear blueprint on how to beat him, take him down, and keep him there. Like, because Burns, I know he's a good jiu-jitsu guy, but he's not someone you'd thought would be able to do that to Woodley. People are saying that he's more going to, like we saw, the striking. So if Burns can do that to you, I think Covington will have his way. I don't think he'll stop him. I think he'll win by unanimous decision. Obviously, I want to talk about your new project, Broaden Horizon. Obviously, if people don't know, it's to highlight talent from Japan, is it, or just Asia in general?
Yeah, Japanese fighters, obviously, because, Ryzen, the idea is it's not exclusive, to Ryzen or Japanese fighters, but yeah, that's kind of the core, right? So those fighters, yeah, who are part of, because, Ryzen has more than just Japanese fighters, of course. So,
yeah. Do you want to talk about what you're hoping to do and what you're hoping to do with this project, and how far do you see it going?
Yeah, man. How far do I see it going? I don't know. It's kind of something where I don't look too far ahead with these things, because it's weird because I wasn't really sure what to expect when starting it, and thankfully the reception has been like 100% positive. Everybody loves it, which is amazing. I didn't see it coming, which maybe I should have, because I guess it is pretty unique, unique idea and everything. But really the goal is it's pretty much in the title, right? I mean, broadened horizon. The idea is to broaden the spectrum and exposure levels for these fighters who are really some of the best in the world, who are just happen to be over in a Japanese promotion, and a major promotion, top five biggest MMA promotions in the world, but over in America. And I mean, obviously I look at more of the American side of it, but really the rest of the world, they don't get as much love from the main MMA media, so that kind of is the goal, is just to give them more exposure and love internationally than just in Japan. Because I think they deserve it. We see these fighters. Take Yuri Prochazka, for example, who looked phenomenal. Came over from Ryzen. That's a guy who, if we were paying more attention to them, like of course I was. There's a select few, but like in a wider spectrum, then they would have been a lot more ready and excited for this big debut that he had. And there's guys like Manel Cape who's on his way, and plenty of other ones I could go off about. But just the idea is to, I'm always trying to help spotlight people who deserve to be spotlighted, that maybe aren't being, given as much exposure as other people for whatever reasons. So yeah, that's just kind of the idea for the show. And obviously, I couldn't do this by myself because my Japanese is very limited. It's very limited, just a couple phrases, even though I tried to learn like last year, but teaching myself. So obviously, I'm getting help for the translations and everything, which is amazing. Thank you to Shingo for that. So yeah, man, that's just the idea, is to, help people know more about these great fighters who we're just continuing to see. So.
It's kind of similar, because I contribute at MMAprospect.com, so it's kind of the similar kind of stuff in terms that we're hoping to raise awareness. Sounds a bit weird, but we're trying to promote younger guys coming through. Obviously, the prospects coming through, and obviously I had an interview with Sean Santella. I know he's obviously not kind of like a prospect, but he's obviously a guy who's fighting for Brave, and obviously a guy who we want to promote, and obviously guys that we want to see people get to know. So I'm obviously got quite a lot of good guys contributing to the website, obviously. So it's good to see like more people get involved in terms of promoting these younger guys coming through, or guys who are soon going to be in the UFC. Like I saw that you had Kai Asakura on.
Yep, Kai Asakura, the new champion, bantamweight champion. Yeah, that guy, stud, man. And he said that his goal is to eventually get to the UFC one day. So it's like, if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's already worldwide. I think he's a top 10 guy, because he knocked out Horiguchi, which was incredible. Then he lost to Cape, and that shows how good Cape is. So I mean, these guys are legit top like 15 guys worldwide that they have over there. So, and in Cape is 26, and surprisingly, we share a birthday. I didn't know that. So, yeah.
Last thing, is there anything you want to plug, or like any fights you're looking forward to you want to plug?
Well, in terms of fights, specifically any fights, I don't know. I have some that I guess I'm looking forward to for, personal reasons and all that. But in terms of what I got going on and everything, I actually just I talked to first guest for episode 2 of Broaden Horizon last night. So working on the lineup for episode 2 already. That should be out before Ryzen 24, which is on September 27th. It is the 11th at the time of recording here. So that should be coming, in the coming weeks, of course. So look forward to that, Broaden Horizon episode 2. And then I spoke with Jessica Rose Clark, Miss Jessie Jess, who competes tomorrow night, UFC Vegas 10, against Sarah Alp. No, not tomorrow. That's next week, actually. That's on the card we just broke down. I'm all over the place. I've been so busy. So, Jessica Rose Clark. Look forward to that interview. That is going to be dropping on Monday for my MMA news. And then I also spoke to Cassius Corrigan. That interview is out now. If you don't know who that is, he's directed and starred in the movie Huracan, which is on HBO and HBO Max, streaming today. It's a psychological thriller about an MMA fighter with multiple personality disorder, which is a very interesting concept, I think. And Jorge Masvidal made his debut in this film, his acting debut. And I almost got an interview with him. So maybe I still can in the future, but I was getting close to that one. So that is out now. I released that, yeah, right before we came on here. So you can find all that stuff on my Twitter at @DrakeRiggs_. You can follow my YouTube channel, which is just Drake Riggs, where all these videos will be as well. I probably missed some stuff, but I just got a lot. I got a lot right now.
Yeah, all sounds good. Make sure you go and check out what he's said, and obviously follow what he's doing with Broaden Horizons. Seems like a very good project. With me, you can find my interview with Sean Santellas out on my YouTube and on MMA Prospects.com YouTube channel as well. All my podcasts are available. This is episode 4. My podcast with Sam Simon, James Lynch, and Quarantine Cast are all up. So this is like a fairly new thing for me, but obviously I'm enjoying it and obviously getting better and better. So thank you for coming on. Hopefully we can do this again soon.
Of course, man. Thanks so much.
See you later.
All right. See ya.